It is the most original children's book. Its originality, I think, is still with us, even 150 years after its first publication. And of course, the illustrations are brilliant and absolutely just so. What is particularly interesting about the illustration, to me at any rate, is that the man who did the illustration, Sir John Tenniel, was best known at the time as a cartoonist. And you know, a serious, he'd do cartoons for Punch and journals of that sort. And that was what he was known for. But this, he was asked if he would be interested in illustrating this children's book or fairy tale, I think Dodgson himself called it. And he said, "Well, I'm terribly busy. But I'll have a go. I'll have a go." And so he did some illustrations and went ahead with it.
So about 30 years ago, when you were working as the head of publications for children's books at Macmillan, you made quite an incredible discovery, didn't you? Can you tell me about that?
Well, I was sitting in my office one day, as publishers, editors do, and I got a telephone call from the company secretary saying, "Michael, I think you might be interested in something we've just come across at the Westminster Bank." Westminster Bank had been the company's bankers for many a long year, and he, the company secretary, a man called Paul Trotman, was there checking over items which were held by the bank as in their sort of safe deposit area. And what he'd discovered there, or come across, were two fairly substantial metal deed boxes marked Alice. This is a nice touch, I always feel. The Westminster Bank actually had a crowbar handy. So it's rather nice to think of a bank having a crowbar as part of their sort of basic equipment. So we literally opened the thing forcibly, the boxes forcibly. And inside were, neatly wrapped, face down, were wood engraved blocks of the illustrations to both the Alice books, Alice Extravaganza and Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And they had been put away in the bank some time ago. And when I joined Macmillan and went to the children's department, I had rather assumed that those blocks had long since disappeared and probably gone to some foundation in America, because I knew the blocks for Carroll's poem, The Hunting of the Snark, had gone to America, and the same sort of thing, I guess. And I hadn't really thought about it very much. So, of course, we were absolutely thrilled to find that we did, in fact, still have the original wood blocks, yes.
After you found the prints 30 years ago, Macmillan published a special edition, didn't they? Can you tell me about that?
We did indeed. I mean, several people said, "Well, why don't you print an edition of the book with using the wood blocks?" But that would have been quite difficult to have achieved, but more importantly, it might have endangered the block, so to speak. They might have got damaged in the printing process. But what we did decide to do was to print copies of the actual individual illustrations. So they would be done from the wood blocks. They were done by an expert printer. They were done letterpress. A great deal of care and trouble was taken with these so that they were the best possible impression you could get from the wood engraving. And we produced copies of all the illustrations in both of the two Alice books, presented in a very nice Solander box, and I commissioned an expert to write about the blocks themselves and so on, and the whole package was something very special and sold for several £100.
Where can people find the original wooden engravings now?
They are held by the British Library. I imagine I'm sure you can see them if you ask, but they're there. When the illustrations, when the blocks went to the library, because we felt ourselves and the Lewis Carroll estate felt that the best place for them was no longer the National Westminster Bank, but they should be in the British Library. And so the British Library at that time put on an exhibition of a small exhibition of the blocks and the illustrations and so on. And that's where they are today.